Hu Tao's banner is right around the corner, and there's a few things that are quite tricky about her that you'll want to know about. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Tales of Luminaria, a new upcoming mobile RPG that features beautiful cel-shaded graphics and an epic storyline told through the perspective of 21 different protagonists. Experience each and every one of their motivations and secrets. For example, you've got Leo, who's kind of goofy, but has his heart set on becoming a noble hero, and then on the other side of the spectrum, there's Lisette, who doesn't mess around and each year selects 2 knights to become her students by making them go through grueling training. Each character can be customized, like Leo, who, even though specializes with his sword at close combat, you can equip on him different costumes or weapons which can completely transform his playstyle by granting something like a ranged strike attack, or with Lisette, you can use one of her powerful twin guns that will freeze her enemies. But that's just few of the characters, each with their own unique storylines that can intertwine together on an epic scale and narrative, and offers that renowned Tales of game series experience. You can pre-register to the game right now by using the link in the description or pinned comment, and by doing so, you'll help support the channel with future videos. You could probably say the same thing about every character, but for someone who has a pretty straightforward playstyle, Hu Tao is quite a complex character in the grand scheme of things. Now, it's probably safe to assume a lot of you are looking forward to her rerun, or perhaps you want to see that Staff of Homa or Thoma pop up into your wishing screen, and funnily enough, all of them are related and will get addressed in this video. First of all, let's start with the most common and crucial topic, Walnut. Now, if you ever bothered to look at some of the usage statistics or watched few of the top team showcases, chances are you'll see the most dominant comp that is made up of Xingqiu, Zhongli, and one character with a flexible role. So does that mean if you don't have these 2 guys following her around, you're basically doomed? Of course not. We are, after all, talking about Genshin, a game that hasn't given us serious endgame content for a year now, so a meta team build isn't going to be the be-all and end-all. In fact, there's plenty of awesome variations Hu Tao can be utilized in. For example, one really fun team is where you use Pyro Resonance and an animal character with Viridescent artifacts set to shred the enemy's resistance. Or if you have Diona, she's perfectly fine together with Kaya, whom you can put on Instructor set to get that extra oomph for reaction damage. The only character that kind of ties everything together and offers good amount of synergetic team builds is Xingqiu, but that's basically been true for Diluc and plenty of other damage dealers in the game. He'll definitely have a huge influence over Hu Tao's overall damage, so if there's one character that you need to think about and want to take full advantage of Hu Tao's kit, then it would be the Book Nerd. But on an individual level, she has strong damage multipliers, can cause a reaction without cooldown on each charge attack, and even brings self-healing after she's done self-harming herself. Still, even with all these things considered, we need to take a deep dive into one of the more controversial topics surrounding her. Some people believe it's too early in Genshin's life cycle to start thinking about 5-star character constellations and 5-star weapons as a free-to-play player or low spender, but let's entertain this idea for a moment. After all, while most of the content can be fully completed at free 4 stars, there's a lot of you out there who love upgrades in playstyle or want to cause bigger damage. And one of the questions that have been popping up quite recently regarding this prankster is whether or not it's worth getting her first constellation or the Staff of Homa. Obviously, none of us know yet if the weapon is confirmed to be featured along with our banner, so keep that in mind. Now, both of these options historically have shown to have a significant impact on sales, which means there is some merit when you're considering these upgrades, but the real question is, how big are they? Well, in the most simplest terms possible, the staff can be treated as a universal upgrade to your account that brings powerful raw stats and a great passive into play which you can use on more than one character, while the first constellation is basically only going to be beneficial to Hu Tao herself. However, as much as the weapon gets praised, there's always artifacts, player skill, rotations, team comps, and so much more that go into overall performance, so even weapons like Dragon's Bane and Deathmatch can get the job done really well. And let's not forget what a massive bait the weapon banner itself is. Not only you're unable to build up pity from previous weapon banners, but there's also that annoying fate point system that's absolutely out of reach to anyone who's free to play, unless you're extremely lucky or have been building up your Primogem reserves for months now. So it's a beautiful, one-of-a-kind polearm that unfortunately comes packaged with a controversy waiting to unfold. Speaking of of which, that's also something that Hu Tao's first constellation has in common with the weapon, and it's that bizarre decision by MiHoYo to literally take away clunkiness from her playstyle. Of course, you could say that C0 Hu Tao basically provides you a more rewarding playstyle by forcing you to learn jump cancelling and keeping an eye on stamina management, but it's an entirely subjective opinion because not everyone likes to see an empty stamina bar before getting hit with one of those crushing enemy attacks. Also, with first constellation, you can literally just spam the charged attack and use dash cancelling for more iframes to give yourself additional invincibility, which in return makes Hu Tao less reliant on Zhongli's shield. You could think of her first constellation as a huge upgrade to quality of life that also provides an increase in overall damage performance. But do you need to treat the weapon or the constellation as necessary upgrades? Not at all. It's entirely up to you, and more importantly, your financial well-being if you're actually going to use some money to Wish, since as someone who has been using her at C0 without Staff of Homa on the main account, she's still a powerful character that offers an enjoyable playstyle. After all, there's a constant barrage of new characters coming out, and it's always easy to forget how quickly those Primo Gems get vaporized at the sight of a new banner. You've probably noticed this if you played the game long enough that it's always easier to base your decisions on a second banner just because of how much more information we have at our disposal, not to mention you can make an informed choice when you're patient enough. That is, of course, if you can control your Primo Gem spending urges. Still, now that Hu Tao's rerun is around the corner, depending on when you're watching this, you might still be on the fence about Childe, or considering to go for Itto and or Goro once they're out. Well, the thing is, giving out any kind of opinion and trying to compare different characters isn't really a good idea, since everyone's situation is different, not to mention there's still barely any units that have similar playstyles, so probably a better way to approach this would be from a team building perspective. For example, regarding Itto and Goro, there's not much we know about them, and even if we did have some data, testing them out in actual gameplay is far more important instead of relying on some theoretical calculations, while on the other hand, Hu Tao has been pretty much solved in every way, since we know what her best weapons, artifacts, and teams are, and this gives you a lot more freedom in making an informed decision. Like, obviously, there's the design appeal and playstyle itself, but it's important to admit the fact what you're getting from a banner isn't just one 5-star you're aiming at, and unless you're a whale, 4-star characters and weapons do matter for the rest of the player base, especially when you can unlock insane constellations for some of these characters. Now, at the time of making this video, the only confirmed 4-star is Thoma, and if you haven't seen the previous video, what's basically great about him is that his pyro application doesn't get into the way of Hu Tao's charge attacks too much, so you'll still be able to cause vaporizes when you have his burst active that lets out a wave of pyro damage every 1 second when attacking with her. But why would you want more pyro when Hu Tao is perfectly fine doing this by herself? Well, if you run a team together with an Anemo character with Viridescent artifact set, which is like basically all of them, then you want to swirl enemies with pyro to get that sweet resistance shred, but it's kind of hard to do this with just Hu Tao, so usually you just bring an additional pyro character like Amber, who surprisingly works quite well with low investment. But now that Thoma is going to be on the same banner, not only are you getting great pyro application, but also a shield that is pretty crucial to keeping Hu Tao alive when she walks the fine line between life and death. Essentially, the banner is pretty much already stacked with a valuable teammate, who even though might not have the best damage predicted so far, yet offers a ton of utility that Hu Tao will appreciate. The tricky part, of course, is building all of these characters with limited resources, which brings us to the next part. We could keep talking about characters' potential all day long, but Resin is impartial to any opinion and chaotically decides if you will actually be able to make those 60,000 damage vaporize attacks. And unless you've got a pile of cash lying around, managing your Resin efficiently when all odds of luck are stacked against you is what truly matters in Genshin, or for this matter, basically any gacha game. So when it comes to Hu Tao's artifacts, you're not just thinking about what she should be equipped with, but all that junk you're getting might be considered another character's treasure. So where am I getting at? Well, even though the most predominant artifact set you will find on Hu Tao users is going to be Crimson Witch 4-piece set, the reality is, this data comes from players who already spent their time obtaining the set, even though there is a strong alternative option, which is going to be inside the newest Inazuma domain. And the awesome thing about it is that if you're considering getting her, you might already have decent pieces from the Reminiscence set if you farm the domain from Emblem set, which is best in slot for so many different characters that it's not even funny anymore. Or the same could be said vice versa. You might be stepping into the domain for the first time to get some reminiscence pieces, but also obtain some really good emblem artifacts along the way. In fact, even though it's not fully confirmed yet, but Emblem 4 set on Toma is going to be pretty awesome, so this might be something you want to consider. But the big question is, what are the trade-offs? Well, because of the unique nature of how this set works, her burst activation uptime will nosedive, which means not a lot of self-sustainability and lack of AoE damage, but you are getting a decent boost to her normal and charged attacks. The other downside would be the 2-set bonus of attack percentage isn't something that's beneficial to most polearm users, and Crimson Witch 2-set ends up as a better option. Generally speaking, Crimson 4-piece is just a well-rounded set, but it's located in a terrible domain that's not resin efficient, while Reminiscence is slightly flawed but comes from an extremely resin efficient domain. Obviously, while set bonuses are great, it's always the substats that dictate how usable the artifact is, and you could end up in a scenario where you have 2 really good Crimson Witch pieces and then a really great Wanderer's Troop 2 set, which you can then use as her loadout, and that's actually something that's been done by quite a number of players. At the end of the day, perfectionism is extremely costly in this game, so think with your resin, not with your heart. One last thing to mention would be the whole situation with future-proofing. A lot of us get attached to our favorite characters, and especially in gacha games, power creep is just another business tactic to keep the players spending. But as we've seen with Genshin so far, MiHoYo's approach has been a mixed bag, but at least we're not seeing power creep with new character releases. They are of course doing some questionable things with constellations, but luckily enough, it's not that big of a deal. So for Hu Tao's case, even after 8 months since her initial release, there's only more options to build her, more teams you can utilize her together with, and in general, more fun you can have than ever before. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.